Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about a single devastating storm that, believe it or not, revealed a powerful, life-saving secret hidden in a forest. This is the story of Cyclone Sidr, and it taught the world a massive lesson about how we live on the edge of the sea. So let's start with just one number, 5 meters. That's over 16 feet high. I want you to just picture a wall of water that tall, just surging inland and wiping out everything in its path. That was the storm surge from Cyclone Sidr, and that right there is the key to really understanding the massive scale of this disaster. All right, to get the full story, we're going to follow this storm's path through 6 key stages. We'll start by looking at the vulnerable landscape, then we'll witness the storm's fury, take a look at the human cost, uncover a surprising natural shield, see how they rebuilt, and finally, figure out the lesson this holds for all of our futures. Okay, first things first, we really need to understand the setting, because this story unfolds in one of the most physically dynamic and, frankly, one of the most dangerous landscapes on the entire planet. We're in Bangladesh, right in a massive river delta, and as you can see, it's one of the most crowded places in the world. But here's the kicker. Most of it is barely above sea level. The ground itself is just soft, loose sediment, which, unfortunately, is perfectly designed to be washed away by the raw power of the ocean. You know, there's actually a term for the state of this coastline. Geographers call it dynamic equilibrium. It's this delicate, constantly shifting balance. But that balance is incredibly fragile. An extreme event, like a major cyclone, can just completely shatter it in an instant. And on November 15th, 2007, that equilibrium was totally obliterated. The storm arrived. Now, Cyclone Sidr wasn't just any old storm. We're talking about a Category 4 monster. It slammed the coast with winds over 215 kilometers an hour and unleashed that terrifying 5-meter storm surge we mentioned, pushing it deep, deep into the low-lying land. The combination was just catastrophic. So you had the wind shredding buildings, the rain causing these massive floods, and then that immense surge of seawater just shattered the coastal defenses. It overwhelmed everything, both what people had built and what nature had made. The physical damage was absolutely staggering, but the impact of a disaster like this, well, it's always measured most profoundly in its human cost. Officially, more than 3,000 people lost their lives. And beyond that single number, millions more saw their homes, their communities, their entire way of life just washed away. And what's so powerful about this chart is how it breaks down the economic devastation. See, the storm didn't just knock down houses, it totally wiped out the very foundations of the rural economy. The rice paddies and fish farms, the main source of income for millions of people, were completely flooded with saltwater that poisons the land and kills the fish for years to come. Sidr also revealed a really painful truth. Physical risk always magnifies social inequality. The people with the least, living in the most fragile homes in the most exposed areas, they suffered the most. It's a heartbreaking pattern we see in disasters all over the world. But amidst all of this devastation, a crucial piece of evidence started to emerge. It pointed to a powerful natural protector that made a literal life or death difference for people. And that protector? It was the Sundarbans, the world's largest mangrove forest. These incredible coastal forests are basically a living sea wall. Their dense network of roots acts like a giant net, just absorbing the power of the waves and gripping the coastline to hold it all together. And this slide just lays it all out, plain and simple. On the left, you see what happened in areas that were shielded by healthy mangroves. The storm's energy was blunted, the coastline held firm, and communities were way better protected. But on the right, where those same forests had been cleared for farming, the storm surge hit with its full unchecked power, causing absolute devastation. So the lesson here was impossible to ignore. A healthy ecosystem was a critical piece of infrastructure. And that realization, well, it fundamentally changed how Bangladesh prepared for the future. In the aftermath, the country invested heavily in this new 3-pronged strategy for survival. First, they seriously upgraded their early warning systems to get people out of harm's way sooner. Second, they reinforced their concrete embankments. And third, they built thousands of new, sturdy cyclone shelters. But here's the crucial part. This wasn't just about pouring more concrete or using new technology. A core part of the new strategy was actively working with nature. They began these huge mangrove replanting efforts, recognizing that this natural shield was just as important as any man-made wall. So, what's the ultimate takeaway from the tragedy of Cyclone Sidr? What does it teach all of us? especially as we face a future with more and more extreme weather. The lessons are incredibly clear and powerful. Sidr shows us that in these high-risk coastal zones, you just can't separate our human systems from the natural ones. Mangrove forests are as critical as concrete seawalls. Early warning systems are as vital as strong buildings. It's all connected. And this brings us to the big idea that really came out of this whole disaster, the need for what's called integrated coastal management. It's this simple, powerful understanding that real safety comes from combining nature's own defenses, smart engineering, and well-prepared communities. You can't just have one or two, you absolutely need all three. The story of Sidr is a stark warning, for sure, but it's also an amazing story of resilience and of learning. And it leaves us with this final, urgent question for all of us living on this changing planet. Can we truly learn to work with nature, not against it, before the next storm arrives?